My husband fed me sleeping pills so he could sleep my sister while I was grieving from my miscarriage. Then he let her wear my perfume, my lingerie, and drink from my world's best wife mug. I pretended not to know while gathering evidence, then live-streamed her confession to the people she least wanted to know. My older sister is the reason I'm a girl's girl. Growing up, she was the only one who admitted that my parents' favoritism was wrong. She'd sneak me the desserts I never got, steal birthday gifts for me from the Dollar Tree, always told me everything was going to be okay. So when I became pregnant, I told her before I even told my husband. And my husband was over the moon too. Everything was okay for a while, until my doctor prescribed me prenatal gummies I wasn't supposed to take. One day, I was lying beside my husband with my hand over my stomach. And the next, I was on the way to the hospital, already knowing that my baby had gone. But when the nurses officially announced it, something changed. It was like my entire world was being suffocated by a sheet of gray, one that made everything so depressing that life barely seemed like it was worth living. I lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks, didn't shower, and stopped flossing. And whenever my wonderful husband would try to hug me, I'd gently push him away, because above all else, I felt like I had failed our family. Unfortunately, my husband got so sick of it that he surprised me with a gift. And that was my sister Emma. I still remember the way my face lit up when she walked in the door. She hugged me in the way that only she knew how, and it was the first time that things felt okay. When I opened my mouth to try and say thank you, she covered it with her palm and told me not to worry about it. I really loved her, so much so that I thought it would be a good idea for her to move in for a while. Not permanently, just for 3 or 4 months, until I didn't feel so awful anymore. Plus, I thought it would be good for my marriage since the whole thing had put a damper between me and my husband too. Emma practically squealed when I told her, and of course our parents agreed because they thought she could be a good influence on my life. The first few weeks was my rock bottom in life, not because of Emma, but because the grief was everywhere. When I slept, I would dream of my baby girl crying and asking me why I let her die. When I was awake, it was like the entire house was a reminder of why I wasn't good enough, why everything I touched seemed to instantly rot under my fingertips. And my husband was amazing, but he had no idea how to deal with my womanly emotions. Because flowers and chocolates just weren't cutting it. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because nothing could replace my baby girl. Luckily, Emma filled in for me. On the evenings that me and my husband used to spend together, they'd watch a movie together instead. Emma helped him cook meals, and even take out the trash. I loved them both for letting me bed rot alone. Fast forward to 2 months later, and I was finally ready to become a functional member of society again. When they saw me in fresh clothes for the first time, Emma was already cheering. I glanced over at my husband, and that's when I noticed something. He wasn't looking at me, he was staring at Emma. At the time, I figured it was just my post-miscarriage hormones talking, so I just shrugged it off and got ready to go to the buffet. It was the first time I had an appetite and felt like eating at the same time, so you can bet your A that I was shoveling all-you-can-eat sushi right into my mouth, lol. After filling my plate, I came back excitedly, and caught a glimpse of my husband's hand extremely high up on Emma's thigh. We locked eyes, and he immediately moved his hands to his lap. That's when an awful gut feeling washed over me, one that felt even worse than the miscarriage, because while I ate, I could hear my sister trying to hide her giggles. Meanwhile, my husband's legs were kicking under the table like they were playing footside. I peered under, and my worst fears were confirmed, but I didn't say anything, just smiled, because I was ready to teach them about the power of underestimation, except they didn't learn until it was too late. I decided to play the long game. That night, I went to bed early, claiming exhaustion from the buffet, but I wasn't sleeping. I was lying there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of my house. Around midnight, I heard footsteps in the hallway. My husband's side of the bed was empty, and I knew exactly where he was going. The next morning, I woke up to find Emma making breakfast in my kitchen, wearing my apron. My husband sat at the table reading his phone like nothing had happened. I grabbed a piece of toast and smiled at them both, noticing how Emma's hair was slightly messy, how my husband's shirt was inside out. "Sleep well?" I asked cheerfully. They both nodded too quickly. Over the next few days, I started documenting everything. I bought a small camera online, one of those tiny ones that looked like a phone charger. I plugged it into the living room wall where it had a perfect view of the couch. Then I got another one for the kitchen, disguised as a clock. Emma started wearing my perfume. I noticed it one afternoon when she hugged me, that familiar scent of vanilla and jasmine that my husband had bought me for our anniversary. She'd also started using my favorite coffee mug, the one with "World's Best Wife" printed on it. The irony wasn't lost on me. I found myself going through the motions of recovery while secretly watching them grow bolder. They'd share these long looks across the dinner table, thinking I was too distracted by my grief to notice. Emma would accidentally brush against my husband when passing him dishes. He'd find excuses to help her with things she didn't need help with. One evening, I announced I was going to take a long bath and go to bed early. I filled the tub, turned on some music, but then I slipped out of the bathroom and crept to my bedroom. Through the crack under the door, I could see the living room light was on. I heard their voices, low and intimate. I pressed my ear against the door. Emma was laughing at something my husband said, then silence. Then the unmistakable sound of kissing. My hands shook as I quietly made my way back to the bathroom. I slipped into the cold water, fully clothed, and let myself cry silently. Not just for my marriage, but for the sister I thought I knew. The next day, I started going through my husband's things while he was at work. I found his iPad hidden in his home office drawer. His messages were still logged in. My heart pounded as I scrolled through his conversation with Emma. The messages went back months, before my miscarriage, before she moved in. They'd been talking since my pregnancy announcement. "She's always had everything," Emma had written. "The perfect husband, the perfect life, now a baby too? You deserve so much better," my husband had replied. "You're the one I think about." I kept scrolling, my stomach churning. They'd been planning this, waiting for an opportunity. My miscarriage had been their golden ticket. But then I found something that made my blood run cold. A message from Emma dated 2 weeks before I lost the baby. "Those vitamins you got, are you sure they're safe? The dosage seems high." My husband's response, "The pharmacist said they're fine. Stop worrying so much." I stared at those those words. The prenatal vitamins, the ones I wasn't supposed to take, the ones that my doctor later said could have contributed to complications. My hands trembled as I took photos of every message. Then I carefully placed the iPad back exactly where I found it. That afternoon, I went to the bathroom cabinet where I'd kept my prenatal vitamins. I'd stopped taking them after the miscarriage, but the bottle was still there. I poured the remaining pills into a small bag and hid them in my purse. Emma came home from her job around 5, all smiles and chatter about her day. I listened, nodded, played my part perfectly. When she went to shower, I slipped into her room. Her phone was charging on the nightstand. I knew her passcode. She'd told me years ago and never changed it, our childhood home's address. I unlocked it and went straight to her photos. There they were, pictures of her and my husband. Some were selfies taken in my house while I was sleeping upstairs. Others were more intimate. In one, she was wearing my lingerie, the red set my husband had bought me for Valentine's Day that I thought I'd lost. I heard the shower turn off and quickly put the phone back. When Emma emerged in her towel, I was in the kitchen, calmly making tea. Want some? I offered. Sure, she said. And I noticed she was wearing my body lotion too, the expensive one I'd been saving. That night at dinner, I announced I was thinking about visiting our parents for a week. I think I need a change of scenery, I said, pushing food around my plate. Maybe being in my childhood room will help me process everything. Emma and my husband exchanged a quick glance. That's a great idea, my husband said, trying not to sound too eager. When were you thinking? Maybe next week, if that's okay with you both? I know it means leaving you two alone. Don't worry about us, Emma said quickly. We'll manage. You focus on healing. I smiled gratefully, playing the broken, oblivious wife perfectly. The next morning, I took the vitamins to a private lab 3 towns over. I paid cash and gave a fake name. The technician said results would take a week. While I waited, I continued my performance. I called my parents, loudly discussing my upcoming visit while Emma and my husband were in the next room. I started packing slowly, making a big show of being indecisive about what to bring. I also did something else. I reached out to Emma's ex-boyfriend, Klaus, through social media. He dated her for 3 years before she abruptly dumped him. I remembered him as a nice guy who'd been blindsided by the breakup. Hi, Klaus, I wrote. I know this is random, but I need to ask you something about Emma. It's important. He responded within an hour. Is everything okay? We arranged to meet at a coffee shop 2 hours away. I told my husband I was going to therapy. Klaus looked older, tired. He ordered black coffee and stared at me across the table. What's this about? He asked. I took a deep breath. Emma's living with me right now. I think she's having an affair with my husband. His face darkened. I'm not surprised. What do you mean? He pulled out his phone and showed me old messages, screenshots he'd kept of Emma bragging about manipulating men, about how easy it was to make them fall for her. In one message to a friend, she'd written about Klaus. He's so stupid. Thinks I actually love him. The apartment is nice though, and he pays for everything. She did the same thing to her roommate in college, Klaus continued. Seduced the girl's boyfriend, moved into their apartment when they broke up. It's a pattern with her. I felt sick. Why didn't you warn anyone? Who would believe me? I'm just the bitter ex, right? He laughed bitterly. Besides, your family always thought Emma walked on water. I thanked Klaus and asked if I could have copies of those screenshots. He sent them to me immediately. Be careful, he warned as I left. Emma's dangerous when cornered. The lab results came back positive. The vitamins contained 3 times the recommended dose of vitamin A, along with herbs that were contraindicated for pregnancy. The report stated clearly, prolonged use could lead to pregnancy complications. I sat in my car in the lab parking lot, staring at the report. They'd poisoned my baby. Maybe not intentionally to cull, but they'd known the risks and didn't care. I made copies of everything. The lab report, the iPad messages, the screenshots from Klaus. I put one set in a safety deposit box at the bank. Another set I hid at a friend's house. The originals I kept with me. 3 days before my supposed trip to my parents, I put the final pieces in place. I called my parents and asked them to surprise visit on Saturday. But I thought you were coming here, my mother said, confused. Change of plans, I said. I really want you to see how well Emma's taking care of me. Don't tell her though. I want it to be a surprise. My mother, always eager to see her favorite daughter shine, agreed immediately. I also installed one more camera, this one in my bedroom, hidden inside an air freshener on the dresser. It had a perfect view of the bed. Friday night, I made a big show of taking sleeping pills. The doctor prescribed them, I told Emma and my husband at dinner, to help with the nightmares. I saw them exchange another look. Emma offered to make me tea. That would be lovely, I said. I watched her make it, noticing how she kept her back to me as she added something to the cup. When she handed it to me, I smiled and drank deeply. I'm going to bed, I announced. I want to get an early start tomorrow for the drive. In my bedroom, I poured the tea down the bathroom sink, then got into bed fully dressed. I waited. Around 11, I heard my bedroom door open. My husband's voice whispered, "She's out cold. Those pills work fast." Emma whispered back. I heard them leave. Through the crack under the door, I could see them heading to the guest room where Emma was staying. I waited another hour, then crept out of my room. I made my way to the basement where I'd set up a hiding spot behind some old boxes. I'd stashed blankets, water, and my phone there earlier. From there, I could hear everything happening upstairs. The next morning, I heard them moving around making breakfast. They were laughing, carefree. Emma was humming, the same song she used to hum when we were kids and she'd gotten away with something. At exactly noon, I heard the front door open. My mother's voice rang out. Surprise! We thought we'd visit our girls. There was a crash, something dropping in the kitchen. Mom? Emma's voice was high, panicked. What are you doing here? Well, your sister said, oh, I could picture the scene. Emma in my robe, my husband in his boxers, the intimate breakfast for two. Where's your sister? My father's voice, stern. She went to visit you. My husband stammered. No, my mother said slowly. She called and said she was staying here, said Emma was taking such good care of her. That's when I made my entrance. I climbed the basement stairs and walked into the kitchen, still in yesterday's clothes, holding my phone up, recording everything. Actually, I'm right here, I said calmly. The look on their faces was priceless. Emma went white. My husband's mouth opened and closed like a fish. My parents stood frozen in the doorway. I've been here all night, I continued, in the basement, documenting everything, just like I've been documenting everything for weeks. I turned turned to my parents. Your golden daughter has been sleeping with my husband, but that's not even the worst part. I pulled out the lab report. She and my husband tampered with my prenatal vitamins, the ones that caused my miscarriage. That's insane, Emma shrieked. You're crazy! Tell them! She grabbed my husband's arm, but he was staring at the papers in my hand, recognizing the messages from his iPad. I have everything, I said. Messages going back months. Photos, videos, even statements from your ex-boyfriend, Emma. Klaus sends his regards, by the way. My mother sank into a chair. This can't be true. I handed her the stack of evidence. Read for yourself. As my parents went through everything, Emma tried to run to her room, but I blocked her path. Looking for your phone? I already sent all those photos you took in my lingerie to Klaus. He's posting them on social media right now, along with all your old messages about how you manipulate people. You can't do this, she screamed. I can, and I did. I turned to my husband. The divorce papers are on your desk in the office. You'll want to read the part about attempted murder of an unborn child. My lawyer says the criminal charges will be filed Monday. He fell to his knees. Please, I'm sorry. We never meant for the baby. Don't. I cut him off. Save it for the police. My father, who'd been silent until now, stood up. His face was purple with rage, but not at me. He was staring at Emma. Get out, he said quietly. Get out of this house and don't ever contact this family again. Daddy, please, Emma started. You're not my daughter, he said. Not anymore. Emma looked at our mother, but she wouldn't even meet her eyes. Finally, Emma ran to her room. We heard her throwing things into bags, sobbing and cursing. My husband tried to approach me. Can we talk, please? Talk to my lawyer, I said. Within an hour, they were both gone. Emma, with her hastily packed bags and her life in ruins. My husband, with a suitcase and the knowledge that he'd lost everything for a woman who'd played him just like she'd played everyone else. I stood in my empty house with my parents. My mother was crying. My father was apologizing for never believing me about the favoritism, but I wasn't really listening. I was thinking about my baby girl, the one who never got a chance because two selfish people decided their affair was worth more than her life. I'd lost everything. My sister, my husband, my child, but I'd gained something too. The truth, justice, and the knowledge that I was stronger than any of them ever imagined. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, like all the poison had finally been drained out. I put my hand on my empty belly and whispered, I got them, baby girl. I got them both. I stood there for a moment longer, my parents still processing everything they'd just witnessed. My mother's tears had turned into quiet sobs, while my father kept shaking his head in disbelief. The silence in the house felt heavy, but also cleansing, like the aftermath of a storm. I need to make some calls, I said quietly, breaking the silence. My voice sounded steadier than I felt inside. My mother reached out to touch my arm, but I gently pulled away. Not yet, I whispered. I'm not ready for that yet. She nodded, understanding flickering in her eyes. For the first time in my life, she was looking at me, really looking at me, not through me to find Emma. I walked to my bedroom, stepping over the clothes Emma had thrown around in her panic. My phone buzzed constantly. Klaus had started posting. I glanced at the notifications flooding in. Former friends of Emma's were commenting, sharing their own stories of manipulation. The facade she'd built over years was crumbling in real time. My lawyer answered on the second ring. I'd been working with her for weeks, ever since I'd first discovered the messages on my husband's iPad. She was expecting my call. They're gone, I told her. Both of them. My parents witnessed everything. Good, she said crisply. That helps our case. I'll file the papers Monday morning. Have you secured all the evidence? Multiple copies in different locations, I confirmed. The lab report is the smoking GN. Excellent. Try to get some rest this weekend. Next week will be intense. After hanging up, I surveyed my bedroom. The bed where my husband had slept beside me while texting my sister. The dresser where Emma had gone through my jewelry, trying on pieces when she thought I was too depressed to notice. The bathroom where I'd cried in cold water, fully clothed, the night I'd heard them kissing. I stripped the bed methodically, throwing the sheets into a garbage bag. Then I went through every drawer, every closet, removing any trace of him. His cologne went in the trash. The watch I'd given him for his birthday. The photo from our wedding day. My parents were still in the kitchen when I came downstairs, dragging garbage bags behind me. My father stood up immediately. Let me help, he said, taking the bags from me. I can manage, I started to say, but he shook his head. Please, let me do this one thing. I nodded, and he carried the bags outside. My mother sat at the table, staring at the evidence I'd compiled. She looked older somehow, like she'd aged years in the past hour. I failed you, she said quietly. All your life, I failed you. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to say it was okay, but it wasn't okay. It had never been okay. Yes, I said simply. You did. She flinched, but didn't argue. Emma called me last month, she continued, said she was worried about you, that you were getting paranoid, seeing things that weren't there. I believed her. You always believed her, I said, sitting down across from her, even when the evidence was right in front of you. I know. She picked up one of the screenshots from Klaus. This boy tried to tell me once, after they broke up. He came to the house, said Emma had been using him. I threw him out, told him to stop spreading lies about my daughter. My father came back inside, brushing his hands on his pants. The neighbors are starting to talk, he said. Saw Emma leaving with her bags, crying. Then your husband with his suitcase. Let them talk, I said. They'll know the truth soon enough. My phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Emma's sister? A woman's voice, nervous. Yes. Who is this? My name is Sarah. First period. I dated someone who Emma. She trailed off, then started again. I saw Klaus's posts. Emma did the same thing to me 3 years ago. She became my roommate, then started sleeping with my boyfriend. I lost everything. My apartment, my relationship, my friend group. She turned everyone against me. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. That must have been awful. I tried to warn people, but she made everyone think I was crazy, jealous, unstable. Sarah's voice cracked. I just wanted to tell you that you're brave. What you did today, exposing her like that. I wish I'd had the strength. We talked for a few more minutes. Sarah gave me her contact information, said she'd be willing to provide a statement if needed. After we hung up, I realized this was probably just the beginning. How many others had Emma destroyed over the years? My parents stayed for dinner, though none of us had much appetite. We ordered Chinese food that mostly went untouched. The fortune cookies sat unopened on the table. None of of us were in the mood for prophecies about the future. Where will you stay tonight? My mother asked eventually. You shouldn't be alone. This is my home, I said firmly. I'm not leaving. But the memories are mine to deal with, I interrupted. I've been alone in this grief for months. One more night won't break me. They left reluctantly after I promised to call if I needed anything. I locked the door behind them and stood in my empty house. It did feel different now. Hollow, but not in a bad way. Like a wound that had been cleaned and could finally start healing. I spent the evening going through the house methodically. In the guest room where Emma had stayed, I found more of my things. Jewelry I thought I'd misplaced. A scarf my grandmother had given me. Even some of my prescription medications. Sleeping pills I'd been prescribed after the miscarriage but never taken. In the back of her closet, wrapped in tissue paper, I found something that made my hands shake. A small photo album I'd started for the baby. Ultrasound pictures. A tiny onesie I'd bought the day after I found out I was pregnant. I'd thought I'd lost it in my grief fog, but Emma had taken this too. I sat on the floor, holding the album, and let myself cry properly for the first time since everything had happened. Not the desperate, drowning tears of fresh grief, but something deeper, cleansing. I cried for my baby, for the sister I'd thought I had, for the marriage that had been a lie. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it and my blood ran cold. You ruined everything. This isn't over. Emma. Of course she'd gotten a new phone already. I screenshot the message and forwarded it to my lawyer, then blocked the number. 10 minutes later, another unknown number. Please talk to me. I love you. We can work this out. My husband. I screenshot, forwarded, blocked. This became a pattern over the next few hours. New numbers, desperate messages, threats alternating with please. I documented everything. Around midnight, I heard a car pull up outside. I peered through the curtains to see my husband's car idling at the curb. He sat in the driver's seat staring at the house. I called the police non-emergency line and explained the situation. They sent a patrol car and he drove away before they arrived. But I filed a report anyway. Paper trails were important. I didn't sleep much that night. Every noise made me jump. Every shadow could be one of them coming back. I'd changed the locks already. Had done it the same day I found the iPad messages, but I still felt exposed. The next morning, Sunday, I woke to find my front lawn covered in flowers. Expensive bouquets, the kind my husband used to bring home after business trips. The kind I now suspected were guilt offerings after spending time with Emma. I took photos of everything, then threw them all in the garbage. Mrs. Chen from next door was watching from her window. I waved at her and she quickly ducked away. The neighborhood gossip mill was definitely running. My phone rang. My divorce lawyer. I've been fielding calls all morning, she said. Your husband has retained counsel. They're pushing for mediation. No mediation, I said firmly. Not after what they did to my baby. I agree, but I need to warn you. They're going to claim the vitamin thing was an accident, that he bought the wrong ones by mistake. The messages prove otherwise. Emma specifically asked about the dosage. I know, but they'll try to spin it. We need to be prepared for them to paint you as a grieving woman looking for someone to blame. The unfairness of it made my chest tight. They'd poisoned my child and now they'd try to use my grief against me. Also, my lawyer continued, Emma's lawyer has reached out. She's claiming defamation for the social media posts. I almost laughed. Klaus posted those, not me. She's saying you orchestrated it. Harassment, emotional distress, loss of reputation. What reputation? I asked. The one built on lies and manipulation? I'm handling it, she assured me. But I wanted you to know. They're going to fight dirty. After we hung up, I made myself breakfast. Real food, not just toast. I needed strength for whatever came next. While I ate, I scrolled through social media. Klaus's posts had gone viral in our extended social circle. The comments were a mix of shock, support for me, and stories from others Emma had hurt. Then I saw something that made me freeze. Emma had created her own post on a new account. In it, she painted herself as the victim. According to her version, she'd been trying to help her grieving sister who'd become paranoid and delusional. She claimed I'd always been jealous of her, that I'd fabricated evidence, that I was having a mental breakdown. She'd even posted photos, carefully curated ones of her taking care of me during my depression. Pictures I didn't even know she'd taken. Me in pajamas, unwashed hair, looking exactly like a woman who'd lost touch with reality. The comments on her post were mixed. Some people who didn't know the full story were sympathetic to her. Others were calling out the inconsistencies, but damage was being done. I called Klaus immediately. I saw it, he said before I could speak. I'm already working on a response. I have videos, recorded conversations. She can't lie her way out of this. She's trying to make me look crazy, I said. That's her playbook, Klaus replied. She did the same to me, but this time is different. This time there's too much evidence, too many people coming forward. He was right. Throughout the day, more stories emerged. A college roommate whose boyfriend Emma had pursued. A co-worker whose promotion Emma had sabotaged while pretending to be supportive. The pattern was always the same. Befriend, infiltrate, destroy, play victim. My parents came by in the afternoon. My father brought tools and helped me install new security cameras around the property. My mother sat with me, going through photo albums, removing every picture of Emma. I keep thinking about when you were little, my mother said, holding a photo of Emma and me at Christmas. Emma was opening a pile of presents while I sat to the side with my single gift. How did I not see it? Because she was good at hiding it, I said. She knew exactly how to play you both. No, my mother shook her head. I chose not to see it. It was easier to have one perfect daughter than to deal with the truth. We burned the photos in the backyard fire pit. It felt symbolic, watching Emma's false smile turn to ash. My father stood guard, as if expecting Emma or my husband to appear at any moment. That evening, I got a call from my husband's mother. I'd been expecting it. This is all a misunderstanding, she started immediately. My son would never hurt you intentionally. And Emma is such a sweet girl. Can't we all just talk about this like adults? Your son poisoned my baby, I said calmly. There's nothing to talk about. That's a horrible accusation. He bought the wrong vitamins by mistake. These things happen. Check his messages with Emma. They discussed the dosage. They knew. I don't believe it, she said stubbornly. You're grieving, dear. Not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months, I replied. Your son chose to have an affair with my sister while I was mourning our child. A child who died because of their actions. If you want to enable him, that's your your choice, but don't call me again. I hung up and blocked her number too. The list of blocked contacts was growing by the hour. Monday morning arrived with a flurry of legal activity. My lawyer filed for divorce, citing adultery and attempted harm to an unborn child. The criminal investigation into the tampered vitamins was officially opened. Emma was served with a cease and desist for harassment. I went back to work for the first time since the miscarriage. My boss had been understanding about the time off, but I needed the distraction now. My coworkers were awkwardly sympathetic, clearly having heard some version of events through the gossip network. If you need anything, my desk mate Jennifer said quietly, I'm here. I threw myself into work, catching up on months of projects. It felt good to focus on something other than betrayal and loss. But my phone kept buzzing with updates. My lawyer, the police detective assigned to the case, friends checking in, and blocked numbers I knew were Emma and my husband trying new phones. At lunch, I sat in my car and checked social media. The battle of narratives was escalating. Emma had posted again, this time with what she claimed were text messages from me threatening her. They were fabricated but convincing if you didn't know better. Klaus had countered with audio recordings of Emma from when they were dating, bragging about how she'd manipulated her college roommate. Sarah had posted her own story, with receipts. Other victims were finding their voices, but Emma had supporters too, people who'd only known her charming facade. Some accused us of ganging up on a woman who'd just been trying to help her sister. The phrase witch hunt appeared more than once. I was about to go back inside when I saw him, my husband, standing by the building entrance, holding flowers. My stomach dropped. I called security immediately. They escorted him off the property while I watched from my car. He saw me through the window and mouthed, please. I looked away. My boss called me into her office when I got back. I need to know if this is going to be a problem, she said, not unkindly. Your personal situation affecting work. It won't happen again, I promised. I've got a restraining order in process. She nodded. Take the time you need, but keep me informed. The rest of the day passed without incident, but I was on edge. Every time someone walked past my desk, I tensed. When I left that evening, security walked me to my car. At home, I found a package on my doorstep. No return address. I called the police before opening it. They sent an officer who carefully examined it. Inside were printed screenshots of the fabricated messages Emma had been posting, along with a note. Stop lying or everyone will know what you really are. The officer took everything as evidence. This helps your case, he said. Harassment, intimidation. Keep documenting everything. That night, I installed extra locks on all the windows. I moved a dresser in front of the bedroom door. Paranoid? Maybe. But I'd underestimated them once already. Tuesday brought new developments. The lab that had tested the vitamins contacted my lawyer. They'd found something else in the pills. A mild sedative. Not enough to cause obvious symptoms, but enough to increase fatigue and confusion over time. They were drugging you, my lawyer said, even before the miscarriage. This changes everything. We're looking at additional charges now. I thought back to those early weeks of pregnancy, how unusually tired I'd been, how my husband had insisted I keep taking the vitamins for the baby's health, how Emma had always been there with a glass of water, making sure I took them. The revelation made me physically sick. I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up. They'd been poisoning me from the start, keeping me weak and compliant while they planned their future together. My phone rang. Klaus. Emma's escalating, he said without preamble. She just posted a video, claims you attacked her at your house. She's got makeup bruises and everything. I pulled up the video with shaking hands. Emma, tears streaming down her face, sporting what looked like a black eye and bruised arms. She spun a tale of how I'd physically assaulted her when she tried to pack her things, how my parents had watched and done nothing, how she'd barely escaped with her life. The comments were already pouring in. People who'd been on the fence were now taking her side. Someone had started a fundraiser for her recovery. This is insane, I breathed. I never touched her. I know, Klaus said, but people believe what they see. She's good at this. Really good. I called my lawyer immediately. She was already aware of the video. We need to respond carefully, she said. Do you have security footage from that day? My heart sank. The cameras I installed were mostly in common areas, not where she was packing. What about your parents? They were witnesses. They'll testify, but Emma's already discredited them in her narrative. Says they're enabling my delusions. We spent an hour strategizing. The truth was on my side, but Emma was winning the public relations war. She knew how to play victim better than anyone. Wednesday morning, I woke to find my car tires slashed, all 4 of them. The security cameras showed a figure in dark clothing and a hood. Impossible to identify, but I knew. The way they moved, the slight favor of their left side. My husband had an old sports injury that made him lean that way. The police took the footage but warned me it wasn't enough for an arrest. We need clearer evidence, the officer said. I had my car towed and got a rental. When I arrived at work, there was a crowd in the lobby. Emma was there, bandages on her arms, talking to anyone who would listen about her abusive sister. Security was trying to remove her, but she was causing a scene. There she is, Emma cried when she saw me. The woman who destroyed my life because she couldn't handle her own grief. People turned to stare, some with sympathy for her, others with curiosity about me. I kept walking, ignoring her performance. You culled your own baby with your neglect and blamed me, she screamed. You're sick. You need help. That stopped me cold. I turned slowly to face her. The lobby had gone silent. Say that again, I said quietly. Emma's eyes glittered with malice. You heard me. You were so depressed, so pathetic, you couldn't even take care of yourself. No wonder the baby. Security footage, I interrupted, loud enough for everyone to hear. From the pharmacy where my husband bought the tampered vitamins. Receipt showing he paid cash to avoid a paper trail. Lab results showing toxic levels of vitamin A and sedatives. Messages between you discussing the plan. Your ex-boyfriend's ready to testify about your pattern of behavior. Emma's face went pale beneath her fake bruises. You want to do this here? I continued. In front of all these witnesses? Because I'm ready. I've been ready since the day I realized you culled my daughter. You can't prove anything, she hissed, but her voice had lost its confident edge. Can't I? I pulled out my phone. Should I play the recording of you and my husband discussing which vitamins would be most harmful? The one where you laugh about how stupid I was to trust you? It was a bluff. I had no such recording, but Emma didn't know that. Her eyes darted around the lobby. lobby, looking for an escape route. Security finally intervened, escorting Emma out while she continued to protest her innocence. But the damage to her narrative was done. The people in the lobby were whispering, pulling out their phones, no doubt sharing what they'd witnessed. My boss appeared at my elbow. Conference room, now. I followed her, knowing this wasn't good. I can't have this drama at the workplace, she said once the door closed. I'm sympathetic to your situation, but this is becoming disruptive. I understand, I said. I didn't know she'd show up here. Take the rest of the week off, she said. Paid leave, sort this out, but if it happens again, she didn't need to finish. I nodded and gathered my things. At home, I found more flowers on my doorstep, this time with a note. I'm sorry for everything. Please let me explain. I love you. My husband's handwriting. I photographed everything and added it to my evidence file. The restraining orders couldn't be processed fast enough. That afternoon, Klaus called with news. Emma's video is being questioned. Someone enhanced it and found inconsistencies in the bruise coloring. They're fake. Of course they are, I said tiredly. But how many people will see the debunking compared to the original? More than you think, he said. Sarah and I have been coordinating. We've got a network now. 7 other victims have come forward. We're compiling everything into a comprehensive timeline. 7 others. And those were just the ones willing to speak up. There's more, Klaus continued. I hired a private investigator after we broke up. I wanted to understand what had happened. He found some interesting things about Emma's past. Like what? Like the fact that she was expelled from her first college for academic dishonesty. She plagiarized papers, then accused the professor of harassment when caught. Your parents paid for it to go away and transferred her to a new school. My parents, of course. How many times had they cleaned up Emma's messes without me knowing? There's a pattern going back to high school, Klaus said. Always the same. Charm, manipulate, destroy, play victim. But now we have documentation. Thursday arrived with a certified letter. Emma was suing me for defamation, emotional distress, and lost wages. She claimed my vendetta had cost her job and reputation. The amount she was seeking was astronomical. My lawyer laughed when I called her. She's desperate. This won't go anywhere, but it shows she's panicking. The criminal investigation must be getting close. Indeed, that afternoon, the detective on my case called with an update. They'd subpoenaed the pharmacy records and found something interesting. My husband had paid cash, but the pharmacist remembered him specifically asking about vitamin interactions and side effects. The pharmacist had warned him about the high vitamin A content, and my husband had said it was fine, that his wife's doctor had recommended it. We interviewed the doctor, the detective said. He never recommended those vitamins. In fact, he'd specifically warned against high doses of vitamin A during pregnancy. The net was closing, but Emma and my husband weren't going down without a fight. Friday morning, I woke to find my front door spray painted with the word liar in red paint. The security cameras had been spray painted too, but not before catching a glimpse of 2 figures approaching. One walked with that telltale lean to the left. The police came again. More reports, more evidence. My lawn looked like a crime scene with all the documentation markers. Mrs. Chen from next door brought me tea while the police worked. I saw them, she whispered. Your husband and that woman. Last night around 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep and was looking out my window. Would you tell the police? I asked. She nodded firmly. That girl was always too sweet. Fake sweet. I never trusted her. As the police interviewed Mrs. Chen, my phone rang. My mother. Emma called, she said, her voice shaking. She's threatening to expose family secrets if we don't help her. Things about your father's business, about things from years ago. What kind of things? I asked, though I could guess. Emma had always been good at collecting information, storing it away for future use. It doesn't matter, my mother said firmly. We're not giving in to blackmail. Your father's lawyer is handling it, but I wanted you to know, she's getting desperate. Desperate people do dangerous things. I double-checked all my locks and called a security company about upgrading my system. That afternoon, I met with the prosecutor assigned to the criminal case. She was a sharp woman named Patricia, who'd seen plenty of domestic cases but admitted this one was unique. The vitamin tampering is clear-cut, she said, but proving intent to harm the fetus is harder. The defense will argue it was negligence, not malice. What about the messages between them? I asked. Emma specifically asked about the dosage being too high. It helps, but a good defense attorney will spin it as concern. We need more. What about the sedatives? They were drugging me. Patricia nodded. That's our strongest angle. Poisoning with intent to cause harm. It carries serious jail time. Jail. The reality of it hit me. My sister and husband might actually go to prison. Are you having second thoughts? Patricia asked, reading my expression. No, I said firmly. They culled my baby. They deserve whatever comes. Saturday was quiet, too quiet. No flowers, no vandalism, no surprise visits. It made me more nervous than the harassment. I spent the day organizing evidence, backing up files, preparing for whatever came next. Klaus called in the evening. Emma's been reaching out to mutual friends, trying to get character witnesses, but it's backfiring. The more people she contacts, the more stories come out. Any word from my husband? I asked. He's been posting on social media, playing the remorseful card. Says Emma seduced him, that he was vulnerable and made a mistake. He's throwing her under the bus. Of course he was. When the ship starts sinking, the rats turn on each other. Sunday morning brought an unexpected visitor. Emma's ex-roommate from college, the one whose boyfriend she'd stolen. Melissa had driven 3 hours to see me. I've been following everything online, she said, sitting in my kitchen. I wanted to help, but I also wanted to warn you. Emma doesn't just give up. When I exposed her in college, she made my life hell for months. Dead animals on my doorstep. Rumors that destroyed my reputation. Anonymous threats. The police could never prove it was her. Dead animals? I repeated, feeling sick. Melissa nodded grimly. She's vindictive and smart about it. Always had alibis. Always made it look like I was the crazy one. I eventually transferred schools just to get away from her. We talked for hours. Melissa shared documentation she'd kept from college. Emails, text messages, even a recording of Emma bragging about her manipulations. It was a pattern spanning over a decade. Why didn't anyone stop her? I asked. Because she's good at choosing victims, Melissa said. People who are vulnerable, isolated, or won't be believed. And she's beautiful, charming. People want to believe her version. After Melissa left, I sat in my quiet house, processing everything. Emma wasn't just a selfish sister who'd betrayed me. She was something darker, a predator who'd been hunting for years. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. You think you've won. Emma's voice cold and flat. But you have no idea what I'm capable of. Everything you love will burn. Emma, I started, but she'd already hung up. I called the detective immediately, played him the recording my phone had automatically made. That's a direct threat, he said. We can arrest her for that. Do it, I said, before she follows through. But Emma was already one step ahead. By the time the police got to where she'd been staying, she was gone. Her roommate said she'd packed up and left in the middle of the night, saying she was going to visit family out of state. My blood ran cold. Out of state, where my parents lived. I called them immediately. Emma's missing. She might be heading your way. We'll be careful, my father promised. The security system is armed. We won't let her in. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. Emma had lost everything. Her reputation, her family, her carefully constructed life. And in her mind, it was all my fault. The detective called back an hour later. We've put out a BOLO for Emma, and we've arrested your husband. What? I sat down heavily. When? An hour ago. He was trying to empty your joint bank accounts. The bank flagged it and called us. He's being charged with theft in addition to the poisoning charges. One down. But Emma was still out there, and her threat echoed in my mind. Everything you love will burn. I spent the rest of Sunday in a state of high alert. Every car that passed made me tense. Every noise made me jump. I kept checking in with my parents, Klaus, Sarah, anyone Emma might target. As night fell, I found myself standing in the nursery I'd never finished, the crib still in its box, the walls half painted in soft yellow. This room was supposed to be filled with life. Instead, it was a monument to betrayal and loss. I put my hand on my empty belly. I'm going to finish this, I whispered to my lost daughter. For you. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The legal battles were just beginning. Emma was still out there, planning who knows what. My husband would likely make bail and continue his campaign of guilt and manipulation. But tonight, I stood in my would-be nursery and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not for reconciliation or forgiveness, but for justice, for truth, for the chance to rebuild my life on a foundation of honesty instead of lies. The house was quiet around me, but it no longer felt empty. It felt like a fortress, my fortress, and I would defend it against anyone who tried to take it from me again. Monday morning arrived with my phone buzzing before dawn. The detective's name flashed on the screen. We found Emma, he said without preamble. She's at a motel 40 miles from your parents' house. My heart hammered. Are my parents safe? We have units watching their property. But there's something else. Emma wasn't alone. She had someone with her. A man we haven't identified yet. I sat up straighter. Emma always had backup plans. Always found someone to manipulate. What do you need from me? Stay put. Don't engage if she contacts you. We're moving in this morning. But Emma was already 2 steps ahead. 20 minutes later, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a delivery driver holding a package. I opened the door cautiously, signed for it, then immediately called the detective back. Inside the package was a USB drive and a note in Emma's handwriting. Watch this before you do something you'll regret. The detective advised me to wait for the tech team, but curiosity won. I plugged the drive into an old laptop I kept for emergencies, one not connected to any networks. The video started playing. Emma sat in what looked like a motel room, but she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a man I recognized with a jolt. Dr. Harrison, the doctor who'd prescribed my prenatal vitamins. Hello, sister, Emma said to the camera. By now you think you've won, but there's so much you don't know. Dr. Harrison stepped forward. I need to explain something. Your husband and Emma didn't tamper with your vitamins. I did. My hands shook as I paused the video and called the detective. You need to see this immediately. Within an hour, my house was full of law enforcement. We watched the video together, Dr. Harrison explaining how he'd been having an affair with Emma for over a year, how she'd convinced him to prescribe the dangerous vitamins, promising they'd run away together once I was too broken to function. But she lied to me too, Dr. Harrison said in the video, his voice bitter. She was using me just like she used everyone else. Your husband was just another backup plan. Emma's face remained calm throughout his confession. When he finished, she looked directly at the camera. So you see, I'm not the only guilty party here. If I go down, everyone goes down. Your precious case falls apart when you realize how many people were involved. The video ended. The detective's face was grim. This complicates things. Does it? I asked. She just confessed, with a witness. A witness who's also admitting to attempted murder. His testimony would be worthless in court. My phone rang. Unknown number. The detective nodded and I answered on speaker. Did you watch it? Emma's voice, smugly confident. I did. Then you understand. Drop the charges, or I'll make sure Dr. Harrison tells everyone how you seduced him during your appointments, how you begged him for stronger medications, how your mental state was so fragile that— Emma, I interrupted. Did you know your motel room has cameras in the parking lot? Silence. Did you know that Dr. Harrison's medical license was already under review for overprescribing medications to 3 other patients? Her breathing quickened. Did you know that Klaus hired a private investigator who's been following you for weeks? That we have photos of you and Dr. Harrison meeting at hotels months before my pregnancy? You're lying, she hissed. Am I? Why don't you look outside your window? The detective gave me a sharp look, but I continued. They've been there for an hour, Emma, waiting for you to make exactly this move. The line went dead. The detective immediately got on his radio, coordinating with the units at the motel. Within minutes, we heard the confirmation. Both Emma and Dr. Harrison were in custody, but Emma's final card hadn't been played yet. That afternoon, as I sat in the police station giving my statement, my lawyer rushed in looking panicked. Your husband made bail, she said, and there's more. He's claiming you knew about the affair all along, that you encouraged it to set them up. What? She handed me a tablet showing a news article. My husband had given an interview to a local reporter, painting himself as a victim caught between 2 vindictive sisters. He claimed I'd been planning revenge since the miscarriage, that I'd entrapped both him and Emma. He has emails, my lawyer said grimly, fabricated ones, but sophisticated. IT is analyzing them now. I thought back to all those nights he'd spent in his office, supposedly working. Had he been preparing for this possibility all along? The detective returned with more bad news. Dr. Harrison is changing his story. Now he says Emma blackmailed him, that she threatened to expose their affair if he didn't help her. But the video could be interpreted multiple ways. A good defense attorney will tear it apart. I left the station feeling like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. Every victory seemed to spawn two new problems. Emma had built her web of lies so intricately that even exposing them created more confusion. At home, I found Klaus waiting on my porch with Sarah and two other women I didn't recognize. "We need to talk," Klaus said. "These are Jamie and Min. They have stories about Emma too, but more importantly, they have evidence." We sat in my living room as Jamie pulled out a laptop. "I'm a forensic accountant," she explained. "After Emma destroyed my life 5 years ago, I made it my mission to track her activities." The screen filled with bank records, credit card statements, transaction histories. Emma's been running the same con for years. Find a vulnerable target, usually someone with family money or a good insurance policy, create a crisis, position herself as the savior, then take everything. Min nodded. "She did it to my mother, convinced her that I was stealing from her, moved in to help, and slowly drained her accounts. By the time we figured it out, Mom had signed over power of attorney. But here's the interesting part," Jamie continued, pulling up more records. 3 of her victims had miscarriages or pregnancy complications. All of them were taking medications prescribed by doctors Emma was connected to. My blood ran cold. "She's done this before? At least 3 times that I can document, maybe more." Sarah leaned forward. "We've been building this case for years, but we needed someone with fresh evidence, someone the authorities would listen to. You're that person." I stared at the screen, seeing the pattern laid out in stark numbers. Emma wasn't just a manipulative sister. She was a serial predator. "There's more," Klaus said quietly. The private investigator found something else. Emma's real name isn't Emma. The room went silent. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "What?" He handed me a folder. Inside were adoption papers, court documents, psychiatric evaluations. The girl my parents had adopted at age 7 wasn't named Emma. She was Christina Mills, removed from her birth family after she'd poisoned her younger brother. He'd survived barely, but the psychological evaluations painted a picture of a child with severe antisocial personality disorder. "My parents never told me she was adopted," I whispered. "They probably thought they were protecting both of you," Min said gently, giving her a fresh start. But Emma, Christina, whoever she was, had never wanted a fresh start. She'd wanted victims. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Your father had a heart attack. We're at the hospital." I raced to the hospital with Klaus following. In the cardiac unit, I found my mother sitting in the waiting room, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "The stress," she said, tears streaming. "When the police told us about Emma's arrest, about what she really did, he collapsed." "Is he stable, but weak?" She grabbed my hands. "There's something I need to tell you. About Emma. About why we never—" "I know," I said quietly. "I know she was adopted. I know about Christina Mills." My mother's face crumpled. "We thought we could save her, love her enough to fix her. But there were incidents. Pets that died mysteriously. Other children who got hurt when she was around. We should have told you. Should have protected you better." "Mom, no, let me finish. When you got pregnant, Emma was so angry. She kept saying it wasn't fair, that you already had everything. I should have seen the danger then." A nurse appeared. "He's asking for you both." My father looked fragile in the hospital bed, monitors beeping around him. When he saw me, tears filled his eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for everything, for choosing blindness over truth." I squeezed his hand. "Just focus on getting better." "The lawyer. He has documents. Things we kept about Emma's past. Use them. Stop her from hurting anyone else." I promised I would. As I left the hospital, my phone rang. The prosecutor. "We have a problem. Emma's made bail." "How?" I nearly screamed. "After everything? A bondsman posted it an hour ago. We're trying to trace who paid for it, but she's already gone. Her ankle monitor was found cut off in a gas station bathroom." Fear washed over me. Emma was free, desperate, and had nothing left to lose. I called Klaus immediately. "Can you stay with my parents at the hospital? Emma's out. Already on my way," he said. "Sarah's heading to your house with the others. Don't go home alone." But I was already driving, my mind racing. Emma would expect me to run, to hide. She wouldn't expect me to go on the offensive. I drove to her apartment instead, the place she'd kept even while living with me, paid for with money she'd probably stolen from previous victims. The building manager recognized me from the news coverage. "She's not here," he said nervously. "Hasn't been back since the arrest. I need to get her things. Family emergency." He hesitated, then handed me a key. 10 minutes, that's all. Emma's apartment was exactly what I'd expected, filled with trophies from her victims. My jewelry, my husband's watch, photos of other people's families with the real family members cut out and Emma's face pasted in. It was a shrine to her conquests. In her bedroom closet, I found the jackpot. Boxes of documents, USB drives, printed emails, evidence of crimes going back 15 years. But one box made my heart stop. Inside were medical records, not just mine, but dozens of women. All had lost pregnancies. All had been prescribed the same vitamins by doctors Emma had been involved with. There were newspaper clippings about the deaths, printed social media posts from grieving mothers. She'd been perfecting this method for years. My baby was just the latest in a long line of victims. I heard footsteps in the hallway. My blood froze. The apartment door opened slowly. "I knew you'd come here." Emma's voice, calm and cold. "You're so predictable, sister." I turned to face her. She looked different. Hair dyed black, clothes I'd never seen before. Already becoming someone new. "It's over, Emma," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "Or should I call you Christina?" Her face twitched. "That person is dead. Has been for 20 years. "No, she's not. She's standing right in front of me. A broken little girl who never learned how to love, only how to take. Spare me the psychology." She moved closer. "You have no idea what my real family did to me. What I survived before your parents saved me. So you decided to spread the pain? Make other families suffer? I decided to survive, to win. And I was winning until I what? Refused to stay broken? Fought back? That wasn't part of your plan, was it?" She pulled something from her pocket. A syringe filled with clear liquid. "It can still be part of the plan. They'll find you here, overdosed in my apartment. Depressed woman stalking her sister, unable to cope with her losses." I backed away, but she moved faster than I expected. We struggled, knocking over boxes, scattering evidence. The syringe fell, rolling dangling under the bed. Emma lunged for it, and I grabbed the nearest thing, a heavy bookend shaped like an angel. Ironically enough, I didn't hit her. I didn't need to, because the apartment door burst open, and police officers flooded in. Klaus stood behind them, holding up his phone. "I've been recording everything," he said, live streamed to the cloud. Every word. Emma froze, her hand inches from the syringe. For the first time since this all began, I saw real fear in her eyes. "You called him," she said, realization dawning. "You knew I'd be here. You planned this." "I learned from the best," I replied. "You taught me that the real power is in controlling the narrative, so I wrote my own ending." The officers cuffed her, reading her rights as she stared at me with a mixture of hatred and something that might have been respect. "This isn't over," she said as they led her away. "I'll get out. I always do." "No," I said firmly. "You won't. Because this time, you're not facing one victim. You're facing all of us." As the police processed the scene, cataloging the evidence that would put Emma away for life, I stood in the wreckage of her secret life and felt empty. Not sad, not triumphant, just empty. The next days blurred together. Emma was charged with multiple counts of murder, attempted murder, fraud, and identity theft. Dr. Harrison pled guilty in exchange for testimony. My husband, faced with mounting evidence, took a plea deal that included significant jail time. The other victims came forward publicly. The story went national, not because of sensationalism, but because of the sheer scope of Emma's crimes. Journalists uncovered more victims, more deaths, more destroyed families. My father recovered slowly. The day he came home from the hospital, he hugged me for the first time in years. Really hugged me. Not the awkward pat he'd usually given while looking for Emma. "We have a lot to make up for," he said quietly. "If you'll let us." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Healing would take time, but at least now it could begin.